All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. David Patrick Carey with Church of the Eternal Logos. And tonight, we have a very cool saint that we're going to be diving into. And a major thank you, shout out, appreciation goes to Heidi, who's usually in our chat. I really hope she's able to show up. I told her last week that it was either going to be tonight for her sponsored stream or Wednesday. And so I emailed her today, letting her know that it was tonight, and I haven't heard back. So hopefully, Heidi, somewhere out there, I hope you're here. I hope you're with us. But we're going to be diving into a saint that, based on a few people in the chat, never heard of. Saint Olga of Kiev. And I promise you, you will never forget her after tonight's stream. How many people in the chat are aware of who Saint Olga is? I'm curious. Let me see in the chat. And this stream is going to touch on a very interesting and important historical point, because we're going to be talking about the 900s, the 10th century. Now, Vladimir the Great, Saint Vladimir the Great, the man who baptizes the Kievan Rus Empire, the Slavic people, that happens in 988. But there's a saint, his grandmother, Saint Olga of Kiev, one that if you're Ukrainian, you would be aware of her because there's multiple monuments, churches, and we'll go over some of that stuff today. But Saint Olga of Kiev was a Slavic princess married to a man named Igor. And when he is killed by a rival Slavic tribe, she takes vengeance on him like no one had ever seen. And not on him, but the group. It's a rather amazing tale I'm about to share with you. And then we'll get into some details about her life. She literally fools them once, fools them twice. The man who killed her husband, he thinks she's going to come marry him. And then she fools him again. And then she has one of the greatest peace offerings, which was never about peace at all, but burning down the entire capital city of the Drevlians. The Drevlians is this rival Slavic group to the Rurik, or the Rurikids. And Olga is married into, so Rurik is essentially the man who founds in Novgorod, northern Russia, founds what will become the Kievan Rus, Commonwealth. It's kind of hard to describe Kievan Rus, especially until Vladimir. So, because it's basically more like a network than what we would consider a modern nation state, or even an empire like Byzantium or something like that. It's not totally centralized. But this woman wait till I share the story, guys. You're going to find it absolutely fascinating. This woman not only rules a Viking group when women, it's kind of unheard of for her to rule, but she not only rules, She takes over for her dead husband. She's the regent for her son Sviatoslav, who is the man who destroys the Khazarians. So we're going to be talking about Igor, her husband, who was killed. He actually, in 944, Byzantium had to sign a treaty with the Kievan Rus because Igor tried to besiege Constantinople not once, but twice. And on the second attempt, he was greeted what is commonly known as Greek fire. So ended not very well for the Slavs, burning many of their ships, the Byzantines did. And so they end up signing this treaty. But her son, Sviatoslav, he is the man who unfortunately was not Christian. But he's the one that's responsible for essentially destroying Khazaria. At least undermined them to a point that when the Mongols came, there was no defense. So we have Olga, Slavic princess, who takes revenge on the Drevlians for her husband. Then she converts to Orthodoxy. And we'll get into some of the details because there's a few different primary sources. So in today's stream, we're going to be mentioning a few different sources about this narrative. Have you guys ever read the Primary Chronicle? Has anybody ever read the Primary Chronicle? It's the Christian chronicle of Slavic history. It's written about 150 years after Olga, but she's featured in it. Is anybody familiar with the Primary Chronicle? Do we have any history buffs in the chat? No history buffs in the chat? No one's read the Primary Chronicle? Oh, so sad. So sad. So the Primary Chronicle is essentially the written history of the Slavic people. It's one of the only primary sources we have because obviously Cyril and Methodius create the Cyrillic language. And I was going to play that video today, talking a little bit about Cyril, Methodius, converting the Slavs, giving you a little bit of a context, because who are the Kievan Rus? We'll get into all that. The Varangians, the Scandinavians, but let me introduce you guys to St. Olga of Kiev. St. Olga of Kiev is one of the few saints that has the epithet equal to the apostles. Now, how does a woman who in history, if you're not Orthodox, the way most people remember Olga is for her incredible vengeance on the Drevlians. When I tell you the story, it's historic. It's memorable. You'll never forget it. But for us, she attained a status equal to the apostles because she's not the first ever Slav to become Christian. Cyril and Methodius in the 800s create the Cyrillic language, and they already are making a push into some of the Slavic cultures at a minority. So at no degree is this the majority of the Slavs or anything like this, but to a minor degree, they're converting. But she is the first authoritative figure, someone with power, someone with influence who adopts Christianity, becomes Christian, and then she has we'll get into the timeline. She has this very famous reception in Constantinople in 957 surrounding her potential baptism. But it's actually a debated topic within history. And I did a little research. If you guys don't have this book, you should get it. If you like Byzantine history, if you like history, it's called The History of the Byzantine State by Ostrogorsky. Fantastic text. Fantastic book. Again, if you're a history buff, you're a bit of a head, I highly recommend it. Ostrogorsky claims that St. Olga actually was baptized before her reception to Constantinople. So let me share a little bit of the story here about who we're going to be talking about. So smash that like. Let me see. Somebody sent something in here. Jonza throws in 5, says, been looking into Orthodoxy for 2 years, just moved. I'm a new father. Well, congratulations, brother. Glory to God. A new father. And got to go to a local Greek divine liturgy last night. Well, excellent, man. How did you like it? What did you think of the liturgy? Are you coming from a Prot background? Are you formerly Catholic? Curious. Usually that depicts or determines how people's first reception typically is. But anyways, let me lay out the story here of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be discussing St. Olga of Kiev. St. Olga of Kiev is, by all historical accounts, a notoriously beautiful young woman. We have no idea when exactly she was born. There's multiple reports. I looked into it. We really don't have a super strong timeline on her life. However, she ends up marrying the son of Rurik, the man who founds the Kievan Rus Commonwealth, if you will. And his son, Igor, is who then adopts Olga because she is so beautiful, so fair as his wife. She loves Igor. Igor, as I said, they're pagans. St. Olga is a pagan at this point. It's a mixture of sort of Slavic paganism with Norse paganism. It's kind of a little bit of both. And that was very common at the time because the Slavs, remember, well, if you do remember, if you don't know, then you can't remember it. But before the Slavs inhabited Eastern Europe, it was actually dominated by the Alans and the Scythians. And these are sort of Iranian, Turkic groups, nomadic groups. And as the Scandinavians, the Vikings became more and more predominant, they began moving down through the river systems, the Dnieper, the Volga, and exploring all the way to the Black Sea, all the way to the Caspian Sea, in which they encountered then the Byzantines and the Arabs. But eventually, they begin to set up shop. And Rurik decides that Kiev, modern-day Kiev, is going to be the capital for his new empire. And then he has a son, Igor. And Igor continues in the line of his father, Rurik. He's waging war, he's expanding, he's consolidating. And from all historical sources, he was fairly successful, except for his fights against the Byzantines. By the time of the 940s, we begin to get these battles between the Kievan Rus, Viking Slavs, pagan Slavs, and the Byzantines. At the second encounter, the Byzantines were ready. They had ships already waiting around the Golden Horn. As the Vikings came southward through the river system, they begin to enter into the Black Sea. They're moving closer to Constantinople, and the Byzantines unleash Greek fire, burn their ships. Igor has no idea what to do. They flee, and they end up signing a treaty with the Byzantines. Then, that's around 944. 944 AD is this treaty. In 945, Igor is killed by what should be his subservients, a rival tribe, one that is kind of wily, tends to give him problems. And because they're a bit ornery, he decides, hey, I'm going to extract a little bit more tax from these people. And so after already collecting tax, someone convinces Igor, you need to go back to the Drevlians and collect more. So he goes back, and the Drevlians were ready, and they weren't going to give him any more money. They ended up tying him between two trees and splitting his body in half. Kills Igor. This is the grand prince of the Kievan Rus. This is the son of the founder. And the Rurik dynasty, by the way, is what will lead into the Tsar. So when you get to like Ivan the Terrible and the Russian Tsars, they're claiming their royal lineage back to Rurik. Igor is his son. Igor is the husband of Olga. Now, Olga gets word, some of the men who was with her husband, who are aware that he was killed, run back to Kiev. Olga, imagine, from everything that I could research, roughly around 25 years old at this point, and has a child. She gave birth to Sviatoslav, the man who will later go on to destroy the Khazars. And she's sitting in Kiev, and she gets word that Igor has been killed. Not only killed, they split his body in half. They tortured the man. And they're sending emissaries right now. As soon as Igor is killed, the Drevlians, who have their own prince, because remember, Kievan Rus, and this is going to get into some of the administrative decisions that Olga makes in reforming Kievan Rus, generally speaking, is they have their own prince, and his name is Prince Mal. And Prince Mal knows of how beautiful Olga is. And so what does Prince Mal do? He sends his 20 best men. We're talking about soldiers. We're talking about Viking warriors. This is a rival Viking pagan tribe that just killed the grand prince. And he sends his 20 emissaries. One of the friends of Igor already arrived back, tell Olga, your husband's been killed. And she's scared. She's married into the Rurik. She's in a very precarious decision. She's a young girl. She's not part of the family. And she has a little baby boy. And she begins to scheme. What Olga does is she consults with the men around her, and they come up with a plan. In a very short period of time, in the primary chronicle, this Christian history of the Slavs doesn't give you the exact date, but it does insinuate essentially immediately after the death of Igor, Prince Mal sends his emissaries. And as these ambassadors arrive, they give the request to Olga. They say, Prince Mal has killed your husband. Your husband was not a very nice man, and he deserved to die. And because you're so beautiful and you're so fair, Prince Mal has decided that you will marry him, and he will rule Kievan Rus from Kiev. He just needs you to come to the Drevlian capital, where you can then be wedded in matrimony to him. And again, a pagan ritual. This is all pre-Christian here. And Olga, she says, oh, well, I find your request conducive. I find it beneficial, and I'm intrigued. Would you guys be interested in a glorious banquet, a ceremony honoring you guys as the winners, and that I will then capitulate and marry your prince? And they said, of course. And so in typical Viking ritual, these ambassadors stay in their little Viking ship, and what they're expected to do is be carried by her people to symbolize their victory, to symbolize their excellence as a demonstration of respect. And they carry them into the Kievan center. And all of a sudden, the men throw them into a massive pit and begin burying them alive. Olga and her men in Kiev bury alive 20 of the best men of the Drevlians that just killed her husband, Igor. Now, Prince Mal, the prince of the Drevlians, has no idea this has occurred. And so what does he do? He gets a letter from Olga. And Olga writes him a letter and saying, oh, your emissaries, your ambassadors have arrived. I found your request conducive. I will be happy to marry you. Just send me 30 more of your best men to accompany me, a princess, to your court, to your headquarters, to your head city. And of course, the prince is like, oh my God, this is going great. Sends 30 more of his best men to Kiev. They arrive having no idea that the other 20 have been buried alive. And they arrive to Kiev and they're covered in dirt. And Olga says, oh my gosh, I'm sure you guys are so tired from the travel. Thank you so much for coming. They again talk about the request. She agrees. She says, before we head back to your prince tomorrow, why don't you guys use my bathhouse? Why don't you guys get washed up, take care of yourself, clean up, and we'll head over there tomorrow. And they go, oh, that's a great idea. And imagine this is in the 900s, this is 10th century. These guys were probably disgusting. So they all go to the bathhouse. They start cleaning themselves, and all of a sudden the doors are locked. And St. Olga demands that the bathhouse be burned to the ground. All 30 men are killed. So at this point, Prince Mal, still unaware, has lost some of his best men. And Olga is still maintaining the facade that she's going to marry him. So then, what happens next? St. Olga then sends another request to Prince Mal, says, I'm willing to come to you and be married to you. And I would just like to first go to Igor, have a sort of a funeral feast for my husband. I'd like to see where he was buried. I'd like to see where his body is. I'd like to give a little bit of recognition and mourn him. And then we should celebrate, and I will be your new bride. And so he welcomes them. Olga travels all the way to the Drevlian territory, but with her men, causing the Drevlians to question, well, where are all the soldiers that we sent? And she says, oh, don't worry. They're actually on our way. I had so much stuff that I wanted to bring that they're coming. They're coming. Oh, okay. So they let her mourn her husband. And she says, this is a celebratory time. Why don't we start drinking mead, an alcoholic beverage, sometimes at that point with psychedelic substances underneath. And so the Drevlians, Prince Mal, and mind you, the celebration is for Olga, Princess Olga. So you can imagine, now you have Prince Mal, the man responsible for killing her husband, Olga, this beautiful 25-year-old woman with a small child who he believes is getting ready to marry her. Now, she knows, based on Slavic pagan customs, that Prince Mal probably is going to kill Sviatoslav, that once they get married, he's going to kill Igor's descendant, and he's going to use Olga for a new lineage that's going to rule the Kievan Rus. Well, Prince Mal, Olga sitting up at the ceremony, imagine hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, all drinking, singing songs, dancing. And Olga doesn't drink, but she wants it to be a joyous occasion. By the time everyone is now drunk, Olga gives the command. Her men have been waiting in the forest, and they begin slaughtering every single person there and kill over 5,000 Drevlians. Astonishing. Just absolute bloodbath. Now, word gets out, and the Drevlians and the Ruriks now are at battle. Now, this lasts for, generally speaking, 5 years or so, and it ends in this. Now, Olga is winning these battles. The Drevlians are putting up a fight, but it's really just a matter of time. And eventually, with her men and her army growing continuously, they make their way to the capital city of the Drevlians. They get to, the city was known as Iskorosten. They get to Iskorosten, and Olga, they come out and she says, look, there's been enough bloodshed. Why don't we just sue for peace here? Why don't we just come up with a peace negotiation? And the Drevlians are like, okay, what do you want? What do you need? And she says, well, I just want a bird from every home. And the Drevlians are thinking, wow, that's a pretty cheap offering of peace. They were expecting to have to pay more money. They were expecting gold and silver. They were expecting slaves. Like, oh, okay, that's very reasonable. So she requests pigeons and sparrows from every home. They bring her all these birds. Now, what Drevlians don't know is that Olga had already concocted a plan with her fellow Slavs of the Rurik dynasty to place fabric, tie fabric to the feet of these birds with a little piece of sulfur inside and let it on fire. And so after all these birds are given to Olga and the Drevlians think that they are now at peace, all of a sudden all these birds are let loose and their feet are on fire. And so what do the birds naturally do? They fly back to the houses that they're from. And so every single house that had a bird that was given to Olga catches on fire, and she burns the entire city down. And her entire army is on the outskirts of the city and kill every single person except for slaves. Anyone who tried to leave the burning city was either enslaved or killed. That is the vengeance of Olga of Kiev. Now, from that period forward, that ends somewhere around 950. Again, we don't have exact dates. The primary chronicle, the primary historical source for this stuff, is a bit ambiguous, and it was written, like as I said, about 150 years after Olga. So at this point, Olga is now running the Kievan Rus as the regent for her son, meaning she is the ruler, the de facto ruler in place of her son, Sviatoslav, until he is old enough to take the throne. And during that period, she begins to change the administrative order. See, the problem of the rebellion of the Drevlians was that her husband Igor wanted to extract too much money from them and caused them to rebel. So instead of constricting the coming down even harder on these other Slavic tribes, what does Olga do? She changes the entire administrative system to essentially a taxation system, a tributary system, where everybody's paying appropriate amounts, and it's not going to change or fluctuate whether the leader hates you or not. So this begins to stabilize the Kievan Rus. Now, according to the primary chronicle, and this is debated because we have the De Ceremonis of Constantine VII. He's the emperor of Byzantium at the time. And Constantine VII, he was the one in 944 who signed the treaty with her husband Igor. So now, according to the primary chronicle, this takes place in 957. 957, Saint Olga has this elaborate reception at Constantinople. And according to the primary chronicle, this is the point in which she was baptized, in which she converts to Christianity. And so she comes to the court of Constantinople as a Viking Slavic princess, one in which the emperor himself is very aware of what's occurred with her vengeance years previously, is very aware that her husband was killed, in fact, signed the treaty with her former husband. And she comes, and at this point, again, so 944, 945, she's roughly somewhere around 25 years old. So now we're looking at 12 years into the future. So now she's roughly around 37 years old with a young boy, probably an early teenager of some sort. And Constantine VII is enamored by her beauty. She's still an incredibly gorgeous woman. And she's very smart, and she's very cunning, and he's never met a woman like her. And they begin to have conversations, and he is infatuated with her mind and her wisdom and her lived experience and how she's ran the Slavs, the Rus, and how she's actually empowered and strengthened their principality, their empire, if you want to call it that, their commonwealth, whatever you want to frame it as. And so Constantine VII makes a point. He says, you're so beautiful and you're so smart and you're so wise. You would look really good ruling here with me in Constantinople, the most beautiful city in the world, the most opulent city in the world, the most erudite, learned, high culture place in the world. Would you be interested in staying here with me? And according to the primary chronicle, this is what happens. St. Olga says, oh, well, that's very interesting, but aren't you a Christian? He says, yes, of course I'm Christian. This is Byzantium. Oh, well, from my understanding, an emperor can't marry a non-Christian, and I'm a pagan. And he goes, well, we can baptize you right now. We can bring you into the faith right now. And she says, oh, okay. Well, I'll only be baptized unless you do it. Now, obviously, the emperor can't do the full baptism, but he says, okay. He brings in patriarch, Theophylactus. He brings in the patriarch of Constantinople, and the patriarch and the emperor then baptize Olga themselves. They're in Constantinople. And upon receiving her baptism and being entered into the church, Constantine then, strikes up conversation again. It says, Olga, now that you're a baptized Christian, what do you say? You want to hitch wagons? You want to get married? You want to stay here? You can help me rule Byzantium from Constantinople? And she goes, oh, well, as Christians, aren't you my godfather? And isn't it wrong in Christianity for godfathers to be with their goddaughters? And I'm your goddaughter. You just called me your goddaughter during the baptism. And Emperor Constantine VII realizes that he was outwitted by Olga. She didn't want to get married. In fact, she maintains her as a widow the entire life. She never remarried. She truly loved Igor. She truly loved her grand prince of Kiev. And she never, there's no hint in history that she was ever interested in another man. And Constantine VII then says, wow, Olga, you are quite cunning. You tricked me. You tricked me. I thought I'd bring you into the church and maybe we could have a future together. You already were aware of Christian doctrine. You were already aware of the request when you asked me to baptize you, knew that I was going to be your godfather, and knew that a godfather cannot marry his goddaughter. So Olga then is still very impressive to Constantine VII, and he showers her with gifts, gold, silver, jewels, um, everything that she wanted. There was really, it's a unique reception in history, especially from a pagan ruler, with how she was adorned. And then she goes back to Kiev and she begins building churches. And from every historical source we have, she maintained a perpetual faith in Christianity. Even so, her son, Sviatoslav, refused to become Christian. Now, Sviatoslav, as I said, is a very interesting character. Is Sviatoslav the Brave, Sviatoslav the First, and he is the destroyer in many ways of Khazaria. Now, he didn't single-handedly do it, but he certainly, let's say he cut the legs out of the Khazarian Empire that the Mongols didn't have a whole lot to do when they came and swept them away from history. And so her son, Sviatoslav, sees all this, sees his mother. And mind you, this is the most fascinating thing about Olga. It is a woman ruling Slavic Vikings, pagans, as a Christian woman. It is in 965 that Sviatoslav actually takes over the power from Olga. And it's not like she was trying to keep it. She was willing to give it to him. And so in 965, 957 is this supposed baptism. Now, regarding the baptism, let me continue forward. I'll continue forward here with Sviatoslav. We'll get to Vladimir the Great. But regarding her baptism, it's actually a bit of a historical question. So the church, and I'll show you some sources today as we go through it, the Orthodox Church typically maintains the primary chronicle. As I said, the primary chronicle is a Christian rich writing of Slavic history somewhere around 120 to 150 years after Olga. And in the primary chronicle, it claims 957 is her baptism date at this grand reception in Constantinople with Constantine VII and the Patriarch. However, if you start getting into like Russian scholars and stuff like that, I dove into the Byzantine State by Orthodoxy, and I found here he says that, however, of greater historical importance, however, was the ceremonious reception accorded to the Russian Princess Olga. It's talking about Constantine VII bringing all these people from different nations. Here, I'll read the whole thing. So it's talking about Constantine hosting the Umayyad Caliph. Now, again, during this point, we just covered the Muslim conquest of Spain. During this point in history, the Muslims are still controlling Spain. Now, the Umayyads have already been defeated, and there's a new ruling party in the Arab world. But the Umayyad Caliph of Cordova has come to Constantinople. Otto the Great, the Holy Roman Emperor, had come to Constantinople. But he says here, of greater historical importance, however, was the ceremonious reception accorded to Russian Princess Olga, who spent some time at the imperial court in the autumn of 957, exactly as described in the primary chronicle. Now we have, it's called De Ceremonis. It is the imperial history. This is under Constantine VII, and it describes the arrival of Olga, and we'll read some of it today. And it describes all the lavish gifts that is given and how beautiful she is and who she comes with and how she's received. But the Byzantine source never mentions her baptism. Now, you can say it's an argument from silence. It doesn't disprove the primary chronicle, but it caused a lot of people to speculate about when was Olga actually baptized. And so here, Ostrogorsky, a scholar, he believes that she was actually baptized in Christian before she came to Constantine. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, but this is what Ostrogorsky says. The personal visit of the regent of the young Kievan state, who had a short time previously been converted to Christianity, taking at baptism the name of the Byzantine empress Helena. Now, why did she choose Helena? Because of Constantine, or Helena, whatever you want to pronounce it. Constantine and Helena. Constantine. It was again, he wins the battle at the Milvian Bridge, 317, converting Rome, Western Rome, into, well, legalizing Christianity, essentially. It isn't until that's the Edict of Milan. Once we get the Edict of Thessaloniki, that's when we get the Roman Empire converted to Christianity, right? So Ostrogorsky's saying that she was already baptized before coming to Constantinople in 957. We don't know. What we do know is she goes back to Kiev after this meeting and she begins building churches. And she encourages other Slavs to convert to Christianity. And even though the pagans find Christianity weak and they mock, especially men who convert to Christianity from their pagan rites, they never threaten Olga. They don't mock Olga. And in fact, if someone wants to convert, they let them convert. So this is why she's considered equal to the apostles. You would wonder, how does a woman who deceives 20 men and buries them alive, then deceives 30 men and then burns them alive, and then deceives the prince of the Drevlians and kills over 50,000, and then deceives the Drevlians one last time and burns down their capital city, how is she equal to the apostles? Well, she's equal to the apostles because she's not the first Slav to ever convert to Christianity. That would be ridiculous. However, she is the first authoritative, important, ministerial figure to convert to Christianity and to promote Christianity, even though 90% of her subjects are pagan. And so her son, Sviatoslav, he's a warrior. He grew up fighting. I mean, when we look at photos of him, he literally he looks like, you guys watch the first Mortal Kombat movie? You guys know Mortal Kombat? Did you guys grow up playing Mortal Kombat? I played Mortal Kombat. What's it, Motaro? Who's the guy with 4 arms? He's got like 4 or 6 arms. And in the movie from the 90s, his head shaved and he just has like his ponytail. Goro, that's it. Thank you, Theodosian. What's Goro? Thank you. I'm glad somebody here is cultured. Jeez. It's Goro. Yes, Wicked Wally. So Goro, that's kind of what Sviatoslav looks like. Imagine this like just massive Slavic pagan dude and his whole head shaved and he just has this massive ponytail coming out of the back of his head. That's what her son looked like. And so because he was sort of not only a very successful warrior, but he was in charge of all the Viking pagan warriors, he did not convert to Christianity. He actually adopted the pagan rites. When his mother dies in 969, so when Saint Olga dies in 969, she is given a full and proper Christian burial service. And so you can see even her son, who rejected Christianity, still honored Christianity. I mean, she was given a full funerary service with priest. In fact, it may have been the bishop that the Byzantines sent there. Anyways, Sviatoslav goes on to campaign against the Khazars. Now, we've talked about the Khazars. The Khazars, Khazaria. Khazaria is a Khazaria is the Turkish Khaganate who adopts Judaism, because at this time, these pagan tribes are really struggling with the success of their counterparts around them. So talking about the Muslims, talking about the Catholics, so the Latin West. Now, we haven't got to the Great Schism yet, so the delineation between Orthodoxy and Catholic isn't fully there, but again, as I've talked about before, basically from Christmas of the year 800, once the Holy Roman Empire is formed, moving forward, we're seeing 2 cultures emerge. Anyways, Olga dies in 969, and Sviatoslav goes and sacks the Khazarian capital. Surprise attack, absolutely destroys them in battle. So bad that they'll never recover. And the Byzantines see this and they think, oh, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. They're a rival group. They controlled essentially trade routes. That's how the Khazar, these Jewish Turkish groups, got so powerful, was through trade and through resources. Oh my gosh, they're going to be destroyed. Like the Byzantines look at this. This is fantastic. Meanwhile, the Byzantines got a Bulgar problem, the Bulgarians and the Balkans. And the emperor's like, hey, look, Constantine VII, like, we got a Bulgar problem over here. Would you be willing to, again, talking to Sviatoslav, who just destroyed the Khazars, would you come over here and do that to the Bulgars? He says, sure. The Byzantines pay Sviatoslav, pay him good money. The Slavs don't turn down a good paycheck, especially when it comes to battle. So they go and they start decimating the Bulgars. And pretty soon, the Sviatoslav and these Vikings, who has a very large army, they're right on the border of Byzantium. They haven't stopped. And so then the emperor goes to him and says, look, hey, Sviatoslav, all that territory you just conquered, that's ours, right? We paid you to fight. That victory is our territory now. And he says, no, not really. And the Byzantines said, no, it is. He says, no, it's mine. So that leads to a skirmish in which the Rus get defeated, and they then flee back to Kiev. And the Pechenegs end up killing Sviatoslav. So Sviatoslav has 3 sons, one of which is a bastard son, or considered a bastard son of some sort. And that is Vladimir the Great. And he's ruling in the northern territory of Novgorod. And they've got a brother, Oleg, and then the Yaroslav or something like that. I forget the other brother's name. Anyways, the brothers, as soon as their father dies, they're like, well, who's going to take over? Well, of course, they start conniving to get rid of Vladimir the Great because he's the youngest and he's not as full-blooded as they are. And that ends up backfiring. Eventually, Vladimir takes out both of them, and he then takes over the Kievan Rus Empire. Now, Vladimir the Great, the grandson of Saint Olga, he's a bit of a womanizer. He's again, according to the primary chronicle, like somewhere like 800 concubines, somewhere in the ballpark of like 50 different wives. Can say the man was sexually active. Vladimir the Great was sexually active, that's for sure. Now, I just told you about this Bulgar problem, right? That Sviatoslav helped ease, but then he wanted to take the territory, irritated the Byzantines, and they sent him on his way packing back to Kiev. Well, now Vladimir's in charge. He has strengthened the Kievan Rus. They are a real power in the region. And the Byzantines end up striking a negotiation under which emperor? Basil II, the Bulgar Slayer. Remember, you guys have been asking me to do a stream on Basil II forever. And Basil II is one of the better emperors of the Byzantine Empire. He's not a saint, although he did contribute to the church quite a bit. But he's known as the Bulgar Slayer. This is totally tangential to today's topic regarding Saint Olga, but Basil, one of the reasons why he's called the Bulgar Slayer is because he defeats them in battle at one point. And he then not only decimates their army and kills thousands of their soldiers, he then maims another, I forget what the number is, hundreds, if not thousands of Bulgars, and blinds every single one of them, except one man. He leaves one eyeball in so he can find his way back to the Bulgaria. So you can imagine, think of a line of hundreds, if not 1,000 plus men having to hold on to each other in a train because the man in the front only has one eyeball and he's the only one who has eyes to take them back to Bulgaria. That really happened. That was Emperor Basil II, who's then the emperor of the Byzantine Empire and strikes an agreement with Vladimir the Great. Vladimir comes to Constantinople and is essentially baptized and marries Basil's sister, Anna, which is totally unheard of at this time. It's an unprecedented marriage because Anna is actually the sister of both Constantine VII and Basil II, two Byzantine emperors. And so she's known as being born in the purple, is what they would refer to it as, meaning she was born into Byzantine royalty. A woman of Byzantine royalty is never, ever married off to a non-Christian, especially to a pagan or immediate pagan convert. But Basil found Vladimir to be a genuine man, ends up marrying his sister to him, gives him tons of money, and he then goes back and baptizes all of his boyars, all of his warriors, and this is the baptism of the Slavs, and that is in 988. So that's a little bit of the story there and the trajectory and how we get and how Saint Olga fits into this whole thing. So yeah, Vlad is a pin. We're not talking about Vlad the Impaler, but Vladimir the Great, the man who baptizes the Slavs. So anyways, that's a little bit about who Saint Olga is. And this is why Heidi wanted me to do a stream on Saint Olga, because she's an incredibly fascinating saint. She has one of the most vicious and historic revenges in history. She then becomes Christian. Now, whether we believe the primary chronicle that she sort of outwits Constantine VII, or as some of the other Orthodox historians have argued that she had converted sometime previously, and when she came to the court in Constantinople, this is why in the De Ceremonis historical source under Constantine VII, there's no mentioning of a baptism, because she was already baptized. And that's why it only describes about who she was with, how she looked, all the elaborate gifts and lavishes that was bestowed upon her. That would make sense. But again, it's a fallacy. An argument, an appeal to silence is not a true argument. But so we don't really know when she was baptized. But we do know that from 957 forward, she was an instrumental figure in Christianizing the Slavs, building churches, and many people did convert. Now, not like Vladimir the Great. Don't even get it confused. It's Vladimir the Great that converts the Slavs. But without Saint Olga, Vladimir probably would have been much more reluctant to adopt Christianity. Now, the famous story is Vladimir is sitting in Kiev and asks his men, because he wants to adopt a monotheism, just like the Khazars did, right? The Khazars chose Judaism because they didn't want to be subservient to the Caliph, so they didn't want to choose Islam, and they didn't want to be subservient to the Pope or the Emperor, so they didn't want to choose Christianity, whether it be Latin or Greek. So they thought, well, we'll choose Judaism because it connects both of them. That was the Khazarian thought process. There's other historical reasons, forced conversions, Jews fleeing Byzantium, winding up in Khazaria at the time. There's other reasons. So Vladimir sees this, and he's seeing that among these pagan nations, even the nomadic nations, there's constant inner fighting. There's constant warring. And he's looking, he's like, I'm looking at my pagans. We can't build anything close to Western Europe or Byzantium, or even what the Muslims are doing under the Caliph. We need to adopt monotheism. And so he sends out emissaries who then go and look at Catholicism, Judaism, or we should say Western, because this is still pre-schism. So I don't want to say Catholicism, but Latin Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Islam, and Orthodoxy. And it's when they step into Hagia Sophia that they say, we didn't know if we were still on earth or in heaven. It was so beautiful. And so Vladimir chooses for a couple of reasons. When he was confronted about becoming Muslim, he said, they don't let us drink alcohol. That's the lifeblood of us Slavs. So that's out. And then between the other ones, Orthodoxy was so beautiful. And of course, his grandmother was already a convert. So it makes sense. So anyways, guys, we'll get into a little bit more details about Saint Olga of Kiev, a very interesting saint many people have never heard. So smash that like. And again, a major thank you to Heidi for sponsoring today's stream. I thought this was a fantastic topic. Nobody has ever requested a stream on Olga, so I'm very appreciative that she did. Wicked Wally throws in 5, says, I guess this is what you're asking for when the husband tells the wife, don't bother me unless everything is on fire. Am I right, boys? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, as a man, one of the things is you hope that your woman loves you as much as Olga loved Igor. Right? I I hope, again, I believe my wife does, but I hope every man hopes that their wife loves you as much as Olga loved Igor, because she did not hold back. Again, an incredible historical sequence of events. I mean, this woman leading the Vikings, which was kind of unheard of, then destroying the enemy of her husband who killed them, taking revenge on them, then consolidating the empire, or creating the foundations which would become an empire, eventually would become Russia. Then converting to Christianity, then doing all these good works, trying to get her son to convert to Christianity, which he wouldn't, because he said, Mom, essentially, this was his line of reasoning. Mom, I'm a warrior. I'm going to lose my other warriors if I convert to Christianity. They're making fun of the other men. I got to be a pagan. So anyway, he did. But he did do good things. He took out the Khazars, but then he tried to steal land from the Byzantines, and then he ends up getting killed by the Pechenegs in 972, which sets the stage for Vladimir to come forth. So anyways, God bless you and Millie, Wally. I hope you guys are doing well. Ben Shapiro's eyebrows are in the chat, everyone. Ben Shapiro's eyebrows have made an appearance in the chat. And Ben Shapiro's eyebrows are here to tell me Dr. DPH is the real PBD, Professor Bro Dude. Oh, well, thank you. The Professor Bro Dude. Hey, I think it's a compliment, Ben. I will take it. I'll take it. I mean, that's praise coming from Ben Shapiro's eyebrows. I'll take it. Maybe I look a little bit more like a professor today because we got the glasses on. So you guys know I scratched my eyeball last week, and I needed to get new glasses. I had some old glasses. I felt uncomfortable coming on stream with glasses on. So I've been partially blind the last few streams because I didn't have glasses on. So now I got my glasses. You can let me know. Do I look like a dork, or do you like them? W glasses. I got one person support me in the chat. W for the glasses. I thought they looked better. I'm not a real glasses guy, but I can't wear contacts for like another week and a half. Oh, my wife says you're my Igor. Oh, new Valentine's just dropped, guys. You want your lady to say you're my Igor. Mojo says a bro dude is like a super bro. That's in a college thing. Yeah. That eye was bad. Dude, you have no idea. You should have saw it the days before. You should ask my wife. My wife will tell you. My eye was very, very bad. That's why we had to ended up going to the urgent care, because it was getting a little bit worrying. Nerd, yeah. Verified, guilty as charged. I am a nerd. W with my glasses. Thank you, Mojo. Thank you, Ortho Clips. See, I'm getting some support. In fact, I enjoy wearing the glasses just because my eyes can breathe. So I don't know. Maybe they'll have to make an appearance after I can wear contacts again. Gianza throws in 5, says Baptist upbringing. Was at an Antiochian last year while traveling with my wife. I like the Antiochian a bit more, but geography, Greek is what is local. Well, I know in Canada, I mean, I'm assuming you're Canadian because you're sending me 5 CA. In Canada, you guys have like a super large Greek community. I don't know how big. Well, you have a lot of Arabs. They're just not Antiochian Christians. So yeah, I would suspect Antiochian Orthodoxy is probably not as popular as Islam, Sikhism, and regarding Orthodoxy. Most of the Greeks I know, take 2. Most of the Canadians I know actually go to a Greek Orthodox church. So totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. But God bless you, brother. Thank you for the support. The Tulosaurus DeTuliosaurus, Austin DeTulio, my friend, my brother. Thank you so much, man, for throwing in 10. He says, great stream, brother. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We're only halfway through here, so we got a lot more to get into. Wicked Wally throws in 5, says, fun fact, Kerry Tagawa, who played Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat, became Orthodox in 2015. I did know that, and I'm glad that you shared that with everyone. I can always count on Wally to make comments of my Mortal Kombat references. Forget all the Saint Olga, forget the Kievan Ruse, forget Constantine VII. What Wally remembers is the Mortal Kombat reference, but that is true. The actor who played Shang Tsung, the guy who pulls the soul out of the fighters that he defeats in the Mortal Kombat 1 movie and video game. Well, I think, isn't he in like Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 video games? Anyway, yeah, he converts to Orthodoxy. I think he just died a few years ago, and he converted to Russian Orthodoxy. I think, did he marry a Russian? Wally's going to know. Wally, did he marry a Russian woman, or did he move to Russia? He lived the ending part of his life. He lived in Russia, and he became a Russian Orthodox Christian. Yes, he did pass. He did pass. Yeah, I believe he's already reposed. But I believe for one reason or another, he was living in Russia. I'm not sure. But Wally, thank you so much, brother, for your support. God bless you, and Millie. Gregory throws in 5, says, for the non-e-drama true Christian educational stream, even though I'm late. Yes, that's right. We're not going to be doing the low-tier e-drama. We're not going to be rehashing the Candace Owens debate. We're going to try to do real content tonight, talk about real things, real education, real saints. So, you know, it's been interesting to see some of the fallout of everything that's occurred, as I'm sure you guys have been watching as well. And, you know, I have my own questions regarding the official narrative of all that stuff. So I don't know. It's been interesting. It's very been interesting, but we're not even gonna touch into that topic tonight. We're staying focused. We're doing real stuff tonight. So anyways, let's do some quick housekeeping. Or let me double check the Dono chat, make sure I don't miss anything on the Dono chat or the Streamlabs. Oh, Victor Ziegler throws in 10 on the Streamlabs. Thank you so much, Victor Ziegler. God bless you, brother. He throws in 10, says, thanks, Heidi, for sponsoring the stream. Exactly. Can we get W's in the chat for Heidi? Learning about a new saint is always a treat. Yes, and this saint in particular is a good one. Oh, and Snagglebeast. Shout out to Snagglebeast. Throws in a super chat earlier today. My brother, he says, God bless, brother. My birthday is coming up on Friday the 28th, and Josiah is visiting. Oh, shout out to Josiah Elleron. Don't know if he's in the chat or not. He's going to be visiting Snagglebeast. We thought maybe we could visit on Saturday if you aren't busy or out of town. Reach out and let me know if you're able and interested. Oh, okay. Sounds good. This is this Friday the 28th, or no, that'd be next week. Okay. All right. Yeah, I will. I'll get a hold of you, Snagglebeast. So thank you. All right. Quick housekeeping. Just need to run through a few things. First of all, I have so much in store for the Logos Academy. In September, we're revamping the whole thing. I'm literally turning the Logos Academy into a full-blown academy. I'm talking articles, not just study guides like we have today, not just study guides, but materials, PowerPoints, various levels of seriousness of education, cohorts, private tutoring if people are interested in private tutoring, limited to only 3 people at most for 3 months, tons of stuff. And so if you are interested, and we are going to be opening it up to women because I'm going to be doing all types of courses. However, we have men's only meetings. So when it comes to some of the conversation, especially the ones that are not recorded so that people can say what it is they want to say and get things off their chest, I'm sorry, ladies, those are only going to be for men. But we're talking about serious development of men. We're talking about serious development in how you apply Logos theology, Christ, being Orthodox Christian, the way you relate to people, your relationships, your marriage, your girlfriend, whatever it may be, your fitness, your health, how you're put together. All of that stuff actually matters. And so if you want to take yourself a little bit more seriously, if you want encouragement, you want aids and help to become the best version of yourself and the man that God intended you to be, and actually applying, not just debating tag all the time, not just telling people, oh, bro, Sola Scriptura is not even the Bible. If you want to apply these things to your life, join us over at the Logos Academy. Also, if anyone has not purchased the best Christian deconstruction of transhumanism anywhere published, get author signed copies at my website with this link right here. Also, if anyone is looking to set up some private consultation, if you are wanting to discuss theology, philosophy, goal setting, life, relationships, you got a date coming up, you need a little advice, hey, don't talk about energy essence distinction. That's my first tip. Don't talk about theology when you've gone your first date. You can set up a consultation. We can get into anything that your heart desires. Also, if you would like to sponsor a stream, today's sponsored stream is done by Heidi, our sister in Christ, who is she in the chat right now? Is Heidi in the chat? I hope she is. I messaged her. She wanted to be here for the live stream of St. Olga, so I hope she is. But God bless Heidi for sponsoring today's stream, in which if you have a stream that you would like me to dive into, that you would like me to research and present for you, you can do so with this link right here. The next sponsored stream is actually going to be on the Reformation and the Enlightenment, looking at some of the philosophical, intellectual, historical connections and how the Reformation, in a way, was needed for the Enlightenment. And so we're going to be getting into that in the next sponsored stream. So use those links right there. Also, if you guys are in the market for some peptides, you can get the best quality peptides right here with this link and use promo code COTEL, C-O-T-E-L. You'll get a discount on peptides, C-O-T-E-L, promo code COTEL. And also, if you're in the market for Orthodox items, being prayer ropes, incense lamps, t-shirts, study Bibles, flags, whatever it may be, check out our brothers over at orthodoxdepot.com. Use promo code COTEL, C-O-T-E-L, and you will also get a discount on any of your purchases. So anyways, check that out if you guys are interested. Going back to our stream on St. Olga here, we have a lot to cover. So here's what I have to show you. Now, I have a whole study guide here. And this is really, if you are interested in this topic, and I'm going to be posting these study guides over on Substack. So if you guys don't follow my Substack, you should, because all these study guides are going to be made available for free. All you got to do is go follow me on Substack. You follow me on Substack, and you're literally going to get access to every study guide that I make. So do that. The link is in the video description regarding all my social handles. But I have a little bit of a study guide I want to talk with you guys about. Then we're going to be playing some video here. This is Igor. This is the husband of Olga. This is him ruling the Grand Prince of Kiev. And we're going to be looking a little bit at his attempts to besiege Constantinople. Then we'll look at St. Olga's revenge and maybe a little bit of Sviatoslav and his destruction of Khazaria, just because it warms your heart. I mean, to me, when I think of the Khazarian Empire just getting absolutely decimated by the Rus, it just feels like there's a sunshine just hitting me and just warming me up. So I just want to share that with you, if possible. So we're going to check a little bit out about that. Again, what I said in my opening, the Rurik dynasty. Rurik was a man, a Varangian chieftain of the Rus, who established his reign in Novgorod. The primary chronicle. Again, this is the primary. I keep referring to the primary chronicle. The primary chronicle, Russian primary chronicle. This is one of the historical sources that is used for most of what I was talking about in the opening there. Anyways, he was succeeded by his kinsman Oleg, who was a regent. for his infant son, Igor, the husband of Olga. So here's Igor. He's the son of Rurik. He was the leader of the Rus. Then we get Olga. Feast day, July 11th, if you're new calendar, July 24th. July 24th, if you're old calendar. And so not much that I need to say. Sviatoslav, that's her son, Prince of Kiev, and eventually the underminer of Khazaria. Then we, of course, Vladimir the Great, the grandson of Olga, and then Aldebert of Magdeburg. Why do I have him up? Well, when you start diving into some of the historical sources, it's interesting that Olga, once she was Christian, was actually in contact with Otto the First of the Holy Roman Empire. So we talked about how she became Orthodox, but she was in contact with Otto the First, and she requested that he send a bishop. Now, it didn't go so well for Aldebert. He was able to escape with his life, but Otto the First sent like a retinue of a bishop, some priests, missionaries, and upon arriving in Kiev, the Slavs annihilated them. Adalbert was able to get himself out and went back westward to Germany, but it didn't last very long. Anyways, interesting little point in history. This was one of the articles that Heidi sent me, and all of this is based off the Primary Chronicle, and I'm going to introduce some of these other historical sources to you in just a second. But I'm not going to read most of this. I've already talked about. See, here you can say Saint Adalbert. See, Adalbert is actually an Orthodox saint. This was one of the interesting things. He's actually venerated in the Eastern Orthodox Church. Now, clearly papal, clearly Western, again, coming from the court of Otto the First, but he is venerated as an Orthodox saint. And you can see here, after her conversion in 957, the story that I've already told you, in 959, Olga called on Latin missionaries from Germany to help her establish Christianity in her states. This is why she's equal to the apostles, because she's evangelizing the Slavs, really the first person. I mean, obviously Cyril and Methodius already set the stage, but his first bishop, to help her establish Christianity in her states, but her first bishop of the Russians, Saint Adalbert, became discouraged by the difficulties of the mission and the massacres of his assistants. The pagan Slavs, kind of a difficult group, ended up leaving Russia with great difficulty in 962. From this period date the very first churches in Russia that Olga had built in wood. And 964, her adult son, Sviatoslav, ascended the throne. And here's what I hate. I don't know. Is this a pet peeve of you guys? What is with this new spelling of Kiev? Kiev. No, it's not Kiev. It's Kiev. It's Kiev. It's spelled K-Y-I-V. It's Kiev. No, it's Kiev. So I got annoyed with this and I looked it up. Do you guys know why it's spelled Kiev instead of Kiev? The historical, like if you put in Kievan Rus, K-I-E-V-A-N, or Kiev, K-I-E-V. Why do they begin spelling it with K-Y-I-V? Oh, nothing. Just in like 2018, the West decided that they're going to adopt this new spelling that Ukraine put forth in the late 90s to decolonize Ukraine from its Russian history. No, we're not going to be decolonizing Ukraine from its Russian history. I'm sorry. Kiev is K-I-E-V, the historical spelling. It will always be that. It will always be that. So we are not in favor of this new spelling, this decolonized. It's Kiev. It's decolonized. Don't bring in those colonizer rhetorics with Kiev. It's Kiev. It's Kiev, okay? but let his mother continue to govern de facto, preferring to devote himself to military campaigns on the borders of her state. Olga was a wise and effective sovereign, but remained powerless to rescue her son Sviatoslav from the clutches of paganism. It was her grandson, Saint Vladimir the Great, who had become the first Christian prince of Kiev through his baptism in 988. So that was one of the articles that Heidi had, and I'll share that with you guys. I'll share all the resources with you in case you guys want to look them up later. So there's that article. It's a French website. I had to translate it from the French. Now, this is an ortho-Christian page. It's actually a good little overview. It's talking a little bit about the celebration of Olga, modern day celebration. It was talking about monument to Holy Princess Olga in Pskov, and talked a little bit about this particular monument. And I thought this was interesting here because this is something that I didn't have. Later, Olga ruled Kiev during the campaigns of her husband Igor as a regent. After his death, she brutally avenged his death. We know that. Her life describes Olga's efforts as follows. So here's a historical source describing Olga's life. And Princess Olga governed the regions of the Russian land under her control, not as a woman, but like a strong and wise man, firmly holding power and courageously defending against enemies. She was feared by her enemies and loved by her people as a merciful and pious ruler, a righteous judge who harmed no one, punished with mercy and rewarded the good. She instilled fear in the wicked, repaying everyone according to their deeds. Throughout her reign, she demonstrated foresight and wisdom. Olga, merciful by nature, was generous to the poor, the weak, the needy. She quickly responded to just requests and promptly fulfilled them. Along with all this, Olga led a temperate and chaste life, refusing to remarry and remaining a pure widow, preserving the princely power of her son until he came of age. When he became an adult, she handed over all administrative affairs and distanced herself from public life, dedicating herself to charity. Then, having entrusted Kiev to her grown son, Olga set off with a large fleet to Constantinople. Historian Karamazin called her the first Russian pilgrim. The ancient Russian chroniclers described this as Olga's journey, combining religious pilgrimage, diplomatic mission, and demonstration of Rus mighty or military might. Patriarch Theophylactos of Constantinople performed a sacrament of baptism. Again, we don't exactly know when. Over her. At one reception, a golden plate adorned with precious stones was presented to the princess. Olga donated it to the treasury of the Hagia Sophia, where it was seen and described by the Russian diplomat Yedrokovich, later Archbishop Anthony of Novgorod in the early 13th century. There was a large golden service plate of Saint Olga of Rus, which she took as a tribute on her journey to Constantinople. On Olga's plate is a precious stone, and on that stone is an inscribed image of Christ. The patriarch blessed the newly baptized princess with a cross from a single piece of life-giving cross of the Lord. The cross bore the inscription, "The Russian land is renewed by the Holy Cross," which Olga, the faithful princess, accepted. After the conquest of Kiev by the Lithuanians, Olga's cross was stolen at St. Sophia Cathedral and was taken by Catholics to Lublin. Its fate after this is unknown. After baptism, the princess was given the name Holy, equal to the apostles Helen, who labored greatly in spreading Christianity to the vast Roman Empire and who found the life-giving cross on which the Lord was crucified. When she returned to Kiev, Olga brought with her icons, liturgical books, and the determination to convert the Russian people to Christianity. She built a church in honor of St. Nicholas over the grave of Askold, the first Christian prince of Kiev, and preached the faith to her native north. Princess Olga's maternal efforts had dramatic and even tragic results. Her successful warrior son, Sviatoslav, remained a pagan, and under his orders, Olga's nephew, Gleb, who was Christian, was killed. Upon Olga's death, her son and grandson and all the people wept for her with great lamentation. Princess Olga was canonized as a saint with the lofty title equal to the apostles at the Council of 1547, which confirmed her widespread veneration in Rus, established even before the Mongol invasion. So, the relics of the founder of the faith in the Russian land were preserved incorrupt during the reign of Prince Vladimir. They were transferred to the Holy Dormition Church of the Tithes and placed in a reliquary. According to tradition, there was a window in the church wall above the tomb of St. Olga, and those who came with faith could see the relics through the window. Some even saw them radiating light, and many of the sick received healing. For those who came with little faith, the window did not open, and they could only see the tomb. We must remember that on the eve of her death, until her very last breath, Olga prayed fervently, especially for the enlightenment of the Russian land. After her death, she repeatedly predicted that God would enlighten the people of the Russian land, and many of them would become great saints. Much of what our pan-Russian founder of the faith prophesied has come to pass. Now, did you guys know about the prophecy of St. Andrew? So this is a monument to St. Olga. And where is this? I think it's in Kiev. So in Kiev, we have here a monument. And what do we have? Can you guys guess who are the two people on the far right side? So we got two guys on the right. We got St. Olga in the center. And we got St. Andrew, the first called, to the left. Why would St. Andrew be there? Does anybody know? Can anybody guess who the people on the right are and who St. Andrew is? Or why he would be there? Anyone? Anyone? Going once, going twice? Okay. So St. Andrew, first called, is the first apostle of Christ, correct? Well, according to tradition, he, after the death of Christ, wandered northward into what would become what we would understand as Eastern Europe, or the area of the Slavs. And he prophesied, and he had a vision that one day they would become Orthodox. They would become Christian. They would be Christianized. So that is why, from the Slavic perspective, St. Andrew is important, because he predicted the conversion of the Slavs. St. Olga is important because she's the first influential person to convert to Christianity of Slavic descent. And then these two gentlemen over here to the right is Cyril and Methodius, the Orthodox saints' brothers. Methodius was a monastic. Cyril was a professor in Constantinople, a theologian. And they create the Cyrillic script, literally the language still used by Slavs today. So that monument is representing the Christianization of the Slavs, ironically, not with Vladimir the Great, but with St. Andrew, the first called, St. Olga, and then St. Cyril and Methodius. So that's why they're there. Okay. This talks a little bit. This is a much longer article. It's a really good article. This is an OCA article. I'm going to share it with you guys. I recommend reading it. It goes into detail about all the gifts that she was adored with, hiding the De Ceremonis historical source for it. I forget where I was. I had it saved. Anyways, you guys can check that out. We have tons of video to get through here. And then here is her Troparion. So the equal to the apostles, blessed great princess Olga, and holy baptism Helen. Her Troparion is giving your mind the wings of divine understanding. You soared above visible creation, seeking God, the creator of all. When you had found him, you received rebirth through baptism. As one who enjoys the tree of life, you remain eternally incorrupt, ever glorious Olga. Today, let us praise the benefactor of all, who glorified divinely wise Olga, that through her prayers he may grant our souls remission of sins. So there's their little Troparion and her Kontakion. If you guys are interested, I'll share that link with you as well. And then these are some Ukrainian resources. This is the church dedicated to St. Olga. So I have seen this church multiple times before. Did not realize that it was dedicated to St. Olga. I didn't know the name of it. And so you want to see a little bit of the inside here. You can see it is a fairly pretty church. So this is still being used today. However, I am not sure whether it is the OCU or the UOC. Everybody know the difference between the OCU and the UOC? I wouldn't be surprised if this is OCU. Orthodox Church of Ukraine is the fake church. It's the one that Patriarch Bartholomew has recognized outside of its historical procedures for creating an autocephalous church. So it's the UOC, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, is the historic church, which is tied with the Moscow Patriarchate. This is an honor that is still given, the Order of the Holy Equal to Apostles Prince Olga. It's jewelry brass, polished and covered with silver. Is an award of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine established by, okay, so the OCU, the fake one. Decision of the Holy Synod on February 4th, 2020, and has 1 degree. The Order of the Holy Equal to the Apostles Olga is awarded for sacrificial love, dedicated work for the benefit of the local Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Oh, Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the historic one, not the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. And what else do I have here? This is actually some of the, I'm not going to read all this to you, but I was reading through this stuff today. This is the Russian Primary Chronicle. This is from UNC, the University of North Carolina. And this is the section all dealing with Olga. So Olga's life, Olga's revenge, that whole revenge narrative. I'm pulling all of that out of here. And maybe if you guys want, we can read it or talk about it. I don't know. I wanted to play a little bit of videos here. This is some academic stuff that I was looking at. So chapter 4 of this book on Princess Olga of Kiev, The Dayspring Before the Sun. There's a lot, as I said, there's a lot of academic discussion about when she was baptized. So I told you, according to the Primary Chronicle, written 150 years after her, there's this whole narrative with her and Constantine VII. However, you start diving into some of the scholarship, and these are Orthodox scholars, by the way. It's not like I'm preferring secular scholars. A lot of these guys are Russian or Orthodox, but there's indications that maybe she was already baptized before she came to Constantinople. So that's what this article right here talks a little bit about. And then this last one, this is a JSTOR article that I was reading concerning the baptism of Olga. That's what this whole thing is about. So if you're very interested in Olga and you want to really have a hardline decision, is it 957? Was it in the 950s when she was baptized? You can check out those links right there. Maybe they'll give you a little bit of insight. So anywho, I'm going to come back to this. We're going to read Olga's Revenge, just so we can read the primary source, the Primary Chronicle. We'll read all of this once we get to it. But why don't we go back and why don't we learn a little bit about Olga and her husband and some of their conflicts with the Byzantines here. And we'll utilize a little king and generals and see what's going on here. So guys, smash that like. If you would like to support the stream, please consider sending in a super chat, either on Dono Chat or Streamlabs, or you can help me. We're 13 super chats away from reaching our goal tonight here on YouTube. So, all right, let's check this out. So we're going to be beginning. This is, Olga is now married to Igor. Okay, but she is pagan at this point.
According to Russian historians, the Byzantines stopped paying the annual tribute agreed upon following.
Is my audio working? Are you guys able to hear? Are you guys able to hear the video? Someone in the chat? Can you hear this?
And because Igor wanted personal glory akin to that.
Audio. Well, that didn't tell me if it's on or... Okay, you can hear it. Okay.
Gained by Oleg. The Khazar sources also mention that the Kievan Rus were forced to attack the Byzantine Empire as a clause of their agreement.
It's a little low. Okay. Let me fix this real quick. Okay. Okay, let's go audio, just double check, aggregate device, Streamlabs multi-output aggregate. Okay, what about now?
Following the Khazar victory over the Rus, but it is disputed. Sources differ on how big Igor's army and fleet were. Russian chronicles refer to the Byzantine sources of Theophanes Continuatus and mention a fantastic number of 10,000 ships. Since the ordinary ships used by the Rus could have 40 persons aboard, then the Kievan Rus army could have had 400,000 men, which is an absurdly high number for the age. The bishop Luitprand of Cremona, who visited Constantinople a few years after the Kievan Rus raid, wrote that the Rus had more than 1,000 ships during their raid, based on the words of witnesses. The Byzantine historian Leon Grammaticos writes about a 10,000-strong Rus army, which is more plausible given the previous Rus raids and the size of armies in the medieval period. A 10,000-strong army would fit in 250 Rus vessels, which is also a more plausible number. Igor's fleet moved from Kiev, and in 3 weeks it was on the shores of Bulgaria, where it was joined by the fleet of the Rus, which travelled from the eastern Crimea, or Tavrida as it was called by the Byzantines. Just like in the previous raids, the Kievan Rus chose a time when the Byzantine fleet was fighting Arab attacks against its Mediterranean islands. But this time, the Byzantine Empire was aware of the attack. According to Basil the Younger, the Byzantine vassals in Kherson, in modern-day South Ukraine, and Bulgarians, who enjoyed peaceful relations with Constantinople, informed them of an imminent Rus raid. On the 11th of June, the Rus reached the shores of Constantinople and set camp near the city. The sources do not mention any incidents of looting or pillaging the outskirts of the city, which happened during the previous raids. Some historians claim that it might be due to Igor hoping that the mere sight of his army might be enough for Emperor Romanus I to agree to his terms. But instead, Romanus I ordered the repair of the out-of-order dromons remaining in the harbour and to arm them with siphons, weapons spewing fire. The command of some 15 old dromons was given to the court chamberlain Theophanes. He ordered his fleet to move to the Golden Horn harbour and wait for the Rus fleet. Igor ordered the Kievan fleet to advance towards the Byzantine fleet, since the sight of 15 old ships did not cause any concern for him. Once the Rus fleet was close to the Pharos lighthouse, Theophanes ordered an attack. According to Luitprand, Igor ordered his men not to kill his foes and capture them alive, which might have been an attempt to use the Byzantine prisoners as bargaining chips. Theophanes' ship continued to advance towards the Rus, with his other ships coming close behind him. The Rus ships surrounded Theophanes, and it was then when he ordered the use of the Greek fire. Chaos ensued. Numerous Rus ships caught fire, and Kievan warriors threw themselves out to save themselves, but their heavy armor drowned them. The rest of Theophanes' fleet joined the battle and further devastated Igor's fleet. While the majority of the Kievan fleet was destroyed, the Tavrik Rus fleet remained in the shallow waters on the shores of Anatolia, where large dromons could not move. Captured Rus soldiers were publicly beheaded. From then on, the remainder of the Rus army was divided into two independent parts. The Kievan army, under Igor's command, landed on the European side of the Bosphorus and destroyed the village called Stenon. But Igor did not have enough men to develop his advance and retreated to Crimea by July. The second part of the Rus army, the Tavrik Rus fleet, was pinned down by Theophanes' fleet in the shallow waters on the shore of Bithynia. In the summer, they landed and proceeded to loot, pillage, and murder in retribution for the Greek fire attack. The empire did not have an army in the region and was hastily gathering one to defeat the Tavrik Rus. The Tavrik Rus were able to move as far as Nicomedia and Paphlagonia in the east, but were harassed by the units of Bardas Phocas until a larger Byzantine army under John Kirkus pushed the Rus to the shore, inflicting heavy damage. The sources are quiet regarding the strength.
Anyways, they ended up defeating them here, and they end up flying, sailing back to Kievan Rus. And I wanted to play the part here where then, well, we can just keep it going here. Igor is going to be killed by the Drevlians, and then we're going to be getting into Saint Olga, the best part.
Of the army. By September, the Rus were running low on provisions, and in an act of desperation, boarded their ships and tried to escape the fleet of Theophanes. But again, the Greek fire was too much for the Tavrik Rus fleet, and the majority of it was destroyed. That would be the last Kievan Rus attack on Constantinople.
Mess with the
Igor
Orthodox,
returned home and began mustering a far larger army than before, made up of the combined tribes of the Rus, and by 944 was ready to attack the imperial city. Hearing of the imminent arrival of this armada, Emperor Romanos I capitulated, giving up yet more precious gifts in tribute, while offering more concessions to Rus merchants. It should be noted that both Rus-Byzantine treaties are full of very specific trading stipulations, tariffs, and customs laws. This emphasizes that the Rus princes were also merchants at heart. However, the princes Dragina had long been dissatisfied with their pay and beseeched Igor to take more wealth from his subjects, saying, "Come with us, prince, to collect tribute, and you will gain, and so will we." Igor agreed, and to that end rode to the land of his least favorite subjects, the ever-troublesome Drevlians. The Grand Prince had collected tribute from the Drevlians once that year already, and his return for more made evident that the Drevlians had had enough of Rurikid tyranny. They poured out of their city, killed the prince's retinue, and took him captive. Igor was then executed in a gruesome fashion.
Now this is, again, I know I'm a broken record here. This is Olga's husband, right? So imagine she's like 23, 24, maybe 25 when this is happening.
Kievan Prince's unceremonious death would lead to the rise of his widow, Princess Olga. Despite being around 25 years old, Olga had a Varangian spirit, was iron-willed, and was cunning as a fox. Her revenge, recorded in the primary chronicle, has since become the stuff of legend. The Drevlians now had their own designs on the Kievan throne, emboldened by their murder of the Grand Prince. They sent envoys to Kiev with a proposal to Olga. "We slew your husband because he plundered us like a wolf. Our princes are good and have preserved the land of the Drevlians. So we come to you, requesting you to marry our prince, Mal."
That is what, again, is present in the primary chronicle. We can go back to this and read it just so you can say, oh, yeah, I've read the primary chronicle. Oh, you're talking about the Russian primary chronicle? You know, next time you're at a cocktail party and you want to come across as intelligent and learned, you're like, oh, yeah, you mean the Russian primary chronicle, you know, written around the 11th century? The Christian articulation of the Slavic history. Yeah, I've read that. Did you read the section on Saint Olga's revenge? I did that one time. I'll do that for you guys. So you can look sharp at a cocktail party.
The princess knew that marrying the Drevlian prince wasn't an option. Firstly, because he would surely murder her infant son, Sviatoslav, and secondly, because vengeance burned in her heart. Nevertheless, playing the role of the timid maiden, she feigned eagerness to accept the offer. The next day, she had the Drevlian emissaries carried to her palace in their boat under the guise of honoring them, only to have the boat thrown into a ditch and the emissaries buried alive. Olga followed up this ruthless deception with another. Sending a messenger to the Drevlians, she claimed she would happily marry their Prince Mal, if only they would send her an honor guard of their best soldiers so she could be escorted in a manner befitting a princess. A contingent of elite warriors were sent to Kiev, and once more, Olga welcomed them with feigned hospitality, allowing them the honor of using her own bathhouse. When the honor guard entered the sauna to wash, Olga had the doors barred and the building set aflame. Olga then traveled to Drevlian lands with a small retinue of loyal warriors. Upon arrival, she managed to convince the Drevlians that their emissaries and honor guard were on their way and were not in fact dead. A great feast was held in her honor. As the sun set and the crowd grew drunk with mead, Olga gave her cue and her warriors massacred over 5,000 Drevlians. Soon, Olga returned with a massive army to finish the job. Town after town.
Yeah, in this town after town, as I said, it went on for years. And again, we don't have great numbers here in regards to the historic timeline, but Olga's revenge against the Drevlians lasted somewhere in the ballpark between like 4 to 5 years. Yeah, somewhere roughly around there. That's what I could find. That's based on academic, primary chronicle, historical sources.
Town in Drevlian lands fell until she reached their capital in Koristan. Knowing that cunning, not brute strength, was the key into the city, Olga offered an olive branch of mercy. At this time you have neither honey nor furs, so I have a small request to make. Give me 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each household. I do not wish to lay a heavy tribute on you, as my husband did.
Dude, she's sly. She's sly. Think about that, man. Like, put yourself in her position. It's 945 AD. You're a 25-year-old princess married to a Rurikid, second-generation Grand Prince of Kiev. His tribal Slavic group just killed him, and they're on their way. She knows their ambassadors are on their way to make her an offer. She comes up with the great scheme to dig a hole and bury them alive through the Viking celebration of carrying them inside their own ship, so they never have to get out of the ship. She does that. Then she covers it up by sending a letter to Prince Mal saying, "Oh, send me 30 more of your best warriors to accompany me to you." And then he sends warriors. She kills them. And then sends another letter to Prince Mal. "I'm on my way. Why don't we have a feast? And I'm going to honor my dead husband, and then I'll marry you." Gets everyone drunk and then slaughters everyone, 5,000 plus people. And then goes on a war against them for roughly 4 to 5 years, ending in the ingenious idea of setting fabric on the feet of birds on fire so that they'll set the entire city ablaze. Like, what an interesting woman in history, right? I was telling my wife this last night when I had already gone over all the research and I was going through Ostrogorsky's book to look at everything that he mentions regarding Saint Olga, Sviatoslav, Vladimir. And you just think, this is what I think about history is so cool, is just put yourself in her perspective. Like, put yourself in the perspective. You're a 25-year-old woman. Your husband, who's your protector and the love of your life, is dead. You have a little baby. The enemy's coming. He wants to marry you. You come up with these plans. You're able to galvanize your people. You're able to grow the Rurikids. Their tribe is larger. They end up defeating after this the Drevlians. I mean, and then you continue to rule the Vikings, and then you become Christian, and the Vikings are majority pagan, and they mock pagans, but they don't mock you because they love you. And then you have a son, and your son's this incredible warrior, Sviatoslav the First, but he doesn't want to be Christian. He's pagan because they make fun of pagans. And he's like, "Mom," he's like, "Mom, I lead the warriors, though. All the warriors, and they're not going to fight under me if I'm Christian. Mom, I got to be pagan. We got to do all this stuff. We got to do human sacrifice and some of the psychedelic rituals because how else are we going to fight well, Mom?" And so he ends up not becoming Christian. And then even while he's an adult, she still reigns as regent because, one, he preferred fighting, but two, she was such a good ruler. You like that, Austin? "Mom, Mom, the pagan Vikings aren't going to fight under me if I'm a Christian. Jeez. Come on. You know I got to be a pagan, Mom. Mojo's her son. Mojo, what'd you just follow? Is my impersonation of you, Mojo? Mom. Gosh, you're a Christian now, and everyone is the Viking. Yeah. Everyone in Valhalla's talking about it, Mom. I mean, it's crazy. We're all sitting around drinking mead after killing some Allens and some pension eggs. And they're telling me that you're Christian now, Mom. It's like totally humiliating. Mojo has mommy issues. Come on, don't go after Mojo like that. Hey, at least he has an incredible mother. She is a historic woman. Okay, so you better show some. So put some respect on Mojo's mama's name. Better put some respect on Mojo's mama's name. She is a great woman.
The people of Khorestan were overjoyed and eagerly fulfilled the princess's will. Unfortunately for them, the fires of Olga's vengeance had not dimmed. She had her soldiers attach to each bird a small piece of sulfur wrapped in cloth and tied to a fuse. When night fell, she ordered the fuses to be lit and the birds to be set free. Flying back over Khorestan with their tail feathers alight, the sparrows and pigeons set the entire town aflame. Panicked and broken, the people of Khorestan fled their city, only to be captured beyond the walls by Olga's soldiers, slaughtered or enslaved.
Dude, that is so ruthless. That is so ruthless. Olga literally comes to the Drevlians. They think she's wanting peace. She's like, just give me 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows of each house. Oh, okay, here they are. Wrapped sulfur, fabric, fuse. Waits till it's nighttime, sends all the birds loose, lights their feet on fire. Everyone's screaming. Just imagine imagine the mayhem. It's 10th century, a village with like wooden tree spikes around it. You're literally in basically a primitive fort. Everyone's screaming. Everything's on fire. They open the gates to run out. It's just Rurik dynasty Viking soldiers there with swords, just cutting everybody down who comes out. Like it's a brutal time. It's a brutal time.
Princess Olga proved to be more than just a mass murderer. For many years after her annihilation of the Drevlians, she proved to be an effective, well-respected head of state, ruling the Kievan Rus as regent on behalf of her young son Sviatoslav. She proactively built settlements in the northern regions of her realm, while ending the ever-hated tribute system, replacing it with a better regulated system of taxation. An adept diplomat, she cultivated good relations with Kiev's trading partners, the most important of all being Eastern Rome. In the year 957, she set off for Constantinople on a diplomatic mission to treat with Emperor Constantine VII. There, she accepted the Christian Orthodox.
Now, I gotta give a little bit of caveat here, because the kings and generals, guys, they're gonna act as if Olga's conversion to Christianity was just a political move, and I'm not even gonna say one way or another. If obviously I'm sure it was beneficial for her to establish trade relations with Constantinople. However, it wasn't beneficial for her to be a Christian ruler of Viking pagans. So I noticed this with like the kings and generals. There was a handful of kind of, let's just say, non-Orthodox Christians, sometimes secular interpretations. And they say, oh, Olga converted because, she saw the wealth of Byzantium and this opportunity. And so she leaped at it. And it wasn't like a sincere Christianity or anything like that. It was very political. Well, one, that doesn't make sense, because she goes back and she builds churches, and she's a devout widow. According to history, she was a fervent prayer. She prayed all the time. So the idea that her conversion was like lukewarm or political doesn't make sense, because yes, it would be beneficial for her in relationship to Byzantium or Western Europe, trade partners, but it didn't strengthen her image in the eyes of the people that were her subjects. They still disliked Christianity considerably. So just keep that in mind. The way that Kings and Generals portrays it is like, oh, she just did it because it was, the opportunity.
Orthodox faith and was baptized. We don't know what Olga's motivation was, but it probably was done for political and economic gain. She made a piecemeal attempt to encourage Christianity in her realm, having churches built throughout it, but her subjects largely clung to their polytheistic faiths.
So, and that, see, I feel like a little bit of shots fired there by the Kings and Generals guys. Totally unnecessary. She, kind of piecemealed, brought Christianity back to her land by building some churches. Some churches, dude, what are you talking about? You're literally talking about a group of people that are absolutely hostile to Christianity. The woman who's a historic leader from her pagan days and her revenge for the death of her husband converts to Christianity, and it softens them to Christ. They still don't like it, but what are they going to do? They're going to attack Olga? Of course not. So she is the first one with giving the space for Slavs to become Christians. Because you think what we just watched, her husband was literally battling the Byzantines. There was no love lost between the Slavs and the Byzantines at this point. So the fact that she was Christian, it gave space and opportunity for Slavs in the future to convert, and it warmed them up to the idea, because essentially, while she's Orthodox, there's still going to be another generation of pagan Vikings, pagan Slavic Vikings.
Whatever gains Christianity made were further rolled back in 964, when Olga's regency ended and the young firebrand Prince Sviatoslav took the Kievan throne. In mannerism and dress, Sviatoslav resembled more his Slavic and Turkic subjects than his Scandinavian ancestors, the legacy of 100 years of Norse assimilation into the culture of their subjects.
And dude, look at Sviatoslav. The dude looked like a badass. Like if you just look at all the Slavic memorials to him, let's see. Like here's one. This is the one I use. Imagine coming up against this dude. Now, obviously, he's not that big because it's a statue. Imagine coming up to this freaking pagan Viking warrior who's just fought his entire life since his father was killed by the Drevlians, like just raised in fire and blood. Does he not look like Goro? Does he not have, again, we were talking about Mortal Kombat earlier. Does he not have the hair of Goro? He totally does. He totally does. Pretty badass dude, even though he should have been pagan. Mom, jeez, Mom, you're Christian now? All the Viking warriors are making fun of me while we're drinking mead and cutting heads off. We were sailing down the Dnieper the other day, and freaking Oleg said, "Hey, Sviatoslav, heard your mom's Christian," and all the guys started laughing.
By all accounts, Sviatoslav's violent childhood had made him cold and ruthless. He rejected his mother's faith, believing that converting to Christianity would lose him the respect of the pagan warriors he rode with, and remained devout to the Slavic pantheon. Sviatoslav's reign would be defined by constant, unending conquests. While his mother continued to run the realm's bureaucratic matters, the young prince spent his days riding with his royal družina, raiding and pillaging neighboring nations. Sviatoslav and his warriors traveled without tents, wagons, or kettles. They lived rough off the land, taking what they needed to survive by right of pillage or by hunting wild game. In popular legend, he was compared to a snow leopard, for he moved lightly and struck quickly.
I mean, the dude was absolutely brutal. Like, he lived just to fight. Like, we're making fun of him because he didn't convert to Christianity. But I mean, that's why he's called Sviatoslav the Brave. Like, dude was leading the charge into battle. He was a badass warrior. Again, Viking pagan, probably did human sacrifice rituals, probably drank the blood of his enemies, did all this other stuff. But he was a badass warrior, that's for sure. Nathaniel throws in 5, says, as high quality as his videos are, Kings and Generals is sadly your typical British. He really is, dude. He really is. Kings and Generals, you know, that, and I noticed that as soon as the Ukraine-Russian war kicked off, because I started watching Kings and Generals for Byzantine history. It's a great resource for, they have the Justinian's Reconquista playlist. That's a good one. They have a really good long documentary over Byzantine history. Really good stuff on Islamic history. But I remember watching those back in 2022, and all of a sudden they started putting out videos about the Ukraine-Russian war. And I'm thinking, why would you do a Kings and Journal? You don't even know like the facts on the ground. And then I watched some of their videos, and it was basically like Western media narrative, like Ukrainian problem. And then I thought, oh, geez, damn, dude, I like Kings and Generals. To know that they're like mainstreamy, I don't hate normies. I welcome normies. Normies, you can come to the channel. Normies, you are welcome here. We will unnormalize you. But I don't know. It's just sad. Someone with such historical knowledge falling for modern day propaganda like the Ukraine-Russian war. It's pretty sad. Commando. This is Sviatoslav to Saint Olga. I can't be one of the cool kids, Mom. It's because you're Christian. Jeez. We were freaking drinking the blood of the Pechenegs the other day after we just conquered like 500 guys in battle. And while we're drinking the blood out of the skulls of our enemies, they're like, hey, Sviatoslav, is your mom still kissing icons? And everyone freaking laughed. Like, come on, Mom. He does have the Goro haircut. Goro haircut, eat horse meat. Yeah. It's because you're Kristana. D. You see the pride flag, press H to pay. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. But this is Sviatoslav, his little journey into the Khazaria. Oh, Ben Shapiro's eyebrows throws in 20. He says, Sviatoslav impression of him crying to his mom sounds like Charlie from Always Sunny. Mom, why can't I just drink blood with the guys? You keep saying this is heresy and sin. It's like all we're trying to do is have a human sacrifice to Odin, sleep with our women. I just gained like 30 concubines. Mom, what are you telling me? I can't sleep with them because it's not Christ-like. What? No way. Like, we just had an all-night mead celebration where we literally sailed down the river drinking mead and then raped and pillaged the first village we saw. And everyone's making fun of me because you say it's not Christian. It's like, how am I going to continue our daddy's honor? Igor would want me to fight. Come on, Mom. Thank you so much, Ben Shapiro's eyebrows. God bless you, brother. Really appreciate the support. The Bombasticus throws in 5, says, why do Slavs, Tartars, and Turkish people had such awful hairstyles? The beard looks cool. Vikings had cool braids. They should have adopted them. Well, the interesting thing, the Bombasticus, you actually make a very interesting and good question here. Why does he dress the way he does? Well, it's because the Vikings are like Scandinavians, right? That's why Slavic paganism and Norse paganism, it's like some cultural differences, but it's pretty much the same pantheon. It's like Roman mythology and Greek mythology. And so if you guys have ever watched the movie The Northman, who in the chat has watched The Northman? Anyone? Going once, going twice? Anyone? It's a good movie if you like violence. I'll watch it. My wife can't watch stuff like that. But The Northman is basically a movie describing the realities of paganism, really right around this time. I forget what year. I think is The Northman during the 700s or 800s. Anyways, it's during that period, the 600s, the 700s, is when all these Scandinavian Vikings and Slavic people start migrating southward and eastward into the present areas that we know Slavic people to reside in. And the people who actually resided there were Turkish and, Persian-like groups of people. So, for example, the Turkish groups like the Alans and the Pechenegs were already there. So they had these like hairstyles. And so the Vikings, especially as you move closer to Constantinople, as you move southward, they started to adopt more of the local culture. Now, they were still explicitly Scandinavian Viking Slavs. They still had their own pantheon, if you will, but the way they dressed, some of their horseback techniques, their warrior techniques, a lot of this stuff was influenced by the locals who already had a long tradition of being on horseback. So that's why they actually started to look that way compared to like Norway. Like if you look at some of the Norse Vikings, they maintained that general look because they did not integrate. They did not have to deal with the Alans, the Pechenegs, the Scythians. They didn't even have to deal with those groups. But Bombasticus, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that.
Young Prince's first target of major conquest was the land of the Jewish Turkic lords.
Yes.
He and his warriors fanned out over the Eurasian steppe.
Get the Khazars. Get the
town
Khazars.
By town, tribe by tribe, forcing the peoples of Khazaria to submit themselves to the rule of the Rus or be annihilated. Sviatoslav employed Turkic mercenaries from other tribes, using their mastery of mounted combat to counter the equally skilled Khazar horse archers. In 965, Rus warriors stormed and annihilated the incredibly prosperous trading cities of Sarkal and Kerch. This was functionally the end of the Khazars, crippled beyond repair, and their empire would never recover. The final death blow came in 969, when their capital at Atil was destroyed. A year prior to this, Eastern Roman envoys had approached the Rus prince with an offer. In return for a hefty tribute of 15,000 pounds of gold, Sviatoslav was asked to participate in a joint invasion of the enemy of the Romans, the mighty Danubian Bulgars. Sensing an opportunity for wealth, war, and glory, Sviatoslav eagerly accepted the Roman tribute and mustered a 60,000-strong army of Norsemen, Slavs, and Pecheneg mercenaries. Like his ancestors, he struck like a lightning bolt from heaven, annihilating the armies of Bulgar Khan Boris II and quickly conquering the entirety of northern Bulgaria.
Lightning bolt from heaven is a Thor reference, if you guys didn't pick that up, because of them being pagan Slavs.
Emperor John Tzimiskes now realized he'd made a deal with the devil. Sviatoslav was becoming far too powerful, and his marauding army would likely not stop in Bulgaria, but could pillage its way to the very gates of Constantinople itself. Knowing that Kiev was largely undefended, the Romans bribed the Pechenegs to betray Sviatoslav and...
Thank you, Nathaniel, for reminding me. Oh no, Sviatoslav, how could you destroy the Khazars? We love Khazaria. We love the Turkish Khazars who adopted Judaism and controlled the silk trade, and the slave trade through the Caucasus region. We love them. Oh no, we hate Sviatoslav. No.
Lay siege to the city. The Pechenegs proved unscrupulous in the face of Roman gold and promptly thundered into the Kievan heartland, laying siege to the Rurikid capital. Now an elderly woman, Olga.
Hey, Porphyrios. Porphyrios.
Was nonetheless able to lead her men and hold out against the Turkic horde until Sviatoslav could return with his army, driving the Pechenegs back to their steppe homeland. Olga died of illness soon after the siege, and was buried quietly on consecrated ground as Christian tradition demanded. In death, she was canonized as Saint Olga, with the epithet equal to the apostles. To this day, she is revered by the Orthodox Church. Meanwhile, the Romans, not content with poking the bear only once, demanded that all territory won by the Rus in Bulgaria had to be surrendered to the emperor in Constantinople, as Sviatoslav had invaded Bulgaria on their behalf. Sviatoslav refused and launched an invasion of Byzantium with a massive army of Norsemen, Slavs, Magyars, and contingents of loyal Pechenegs and Bulgars. The Rus coalition smashed against the gates of Adrianople, but were defeated by a Roman counteroffensive at the Battle of Arcadiopolis in 970. The Rurikid prince was forced to retreat to Dorostelon, where he held out against the Romans for 65 days, but cut off and surrounded, was eventually forced to make peace with them, relinquishing his conquests. Fearing that the truce with Sviatoslav was not in.
Get that back, Sviatoslav. That's Byzantine territory.
Sure, the Byzantine emperor induced the Pecheneg Khan Kuya to kill the Rus prince before he reached Kiev.
Yes, because every Orthodox Christian knows the Khazars are our greatest ally. It's true. It's historical, actually. It's just plain history, boy. The Khazars are our greatest ally. They always have been, always will be.
Sure enough, while attempting to cross the cataphracts on the Isle of Kotitsa, he and his retinue were set upon by a hail of Turkic arrows. Sviatoslav was killed in the ambush, and according to legend, his skull was turned into a drinking vessel for the Pecheneg Khan. Upon Prince Sviatoslav's demise.
So, and then it gets into Vladimir and how it gets all split up between his sons and stuff like that. I think doing a stream on Vladimir the Great would be a fun one. That's what this whole next section. This is and by the way, if you guys haven't watched this, fantastic 2-hour overview of the Rus. So if you're digging this history, you kind of like, this period in history, this geography. I mean, this is stuff most Westerners don't know. You ask a Westerner about the Primary Chronicle, probably never heard of it. You ask name me a person from the 10th century, anywhere during, in the vicinity of the Eastern European or Eastern Roman Empire. Just crickets. And you could be like, oh, yeah, you mean, are you talking about Rurik? What about Igor? Oleg? Oh, how about Olga? What about her son, Vyacheslav? You've heard of Vladimir the Great? You see, what I'm trying to do for you guys in these streams is give you ammunition during your cocktail. I know you guys go to these highfalutin cocktail parties. You're with the artsy-fartsy type people. You don't know what to talk about. I'm just giving you ammunition. I'm just giving you things that are useful. Shout out to the Bombasticus, throws in $5, says, I have always wondered how so many pagan and shamanic religions survived in Russia until today, and how they have so many Muslims. Well, the Muslims, interestingly enough, have you heard of the Volga Bulgars? It's another interesting group in history, the Volga Bulgars. So they're Bulgars, Bulgaria. They're Bulgars near the Volga River. So the Volga River is the more eastern river in Russia compared to the Dnieper. And they adopted Islam. So remember when I talked about how Vladimir the Great, he was looking for a monotheism. The Khazars were looking for a monotheism. The Volga Bulgars were also a pagan group. And they saw the Khazars adopt Judaism. They saw Vladimir adopt Orthodoxy. And they said, well, sheesh, we got to adopt a monotheism. They adopted Islam. The Volga Bulgars adopted Islam. One of their main trade partners was the Caliph and the Islamic world. So that's how you start getting some of the Islamic expansions. Remember, we covered the Umayyad Empire. Remember, it's the largest Islamic empire in Muslim history. We covered that last one with the Muslim conquest of Spain. And they reached all the way through the Caucasus region. And Islam went all the way up to the Khazars, right? So it was Muslim and pagans, or essentially. And so what a lot of those groups did end up adopting Islam. So when you start looking at Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, obviously all the Turkish groups, all the Turks end up converting to Islam. So that's where so many of the Muslims, so you think about the Dagestanis and people like that, that's where Islam sort of seeps into those crevices in the Caucasus Mountain region. And in regards to the shamanic religion, that's their tradition. I mean, that's their old religion. You still have people now, I would say, and really I have nothing to really back this claim up with other than this is my opinion and maybe it's true. I would say that the Russian Christianization was more thorough than even like some of the Protestant Scandinavian nations. Like today in Norway, paganism is like on the up. It's an upward trend. It's more and more popular. So I don't know about, I don't know. I think for some of these groups like the Slavs and the Scandinavians, it's a yearning for identity. Vikings they were ruthless warriors. Like you got to give them credit. They were also ruthless people. Not exactly a high culture, right? They didn't even have writing. That's why Cyril and Methodius creating Cyrillic was so important. They didn't even have writing. Paul throws in 5. Thank you very much, the Bombasticus. Thank you very much, Paul. He says that Sviatoslav voice makes me think when Beta Trump gets told what to do by Alpha BB. How's it going? Yeah. Oh, geez, BB? I really got to go back to war with the Iranians? Like, I don't even have ammunition right now. Our Patriots, our Thads, we're like totally out of like missiles, bro. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't keep warring with the Iranians. I mean, they're controlling the Strait of Hormuz right now. And now the Mendeb Strait, it's also closed by the Houthis. Like, BB, I can't keep doing everything you want. I know you're the chosen people. I love Israel. This YouTube channel loves Israel. But come on, BB. Come on, man. That's like Joe Biden. Come on, Jack. Come on, BB. Come on. Come on, man. I can't keep going to war. Sweet baby Yahoo. Come on, sweet baby Yahoo. I can't keep going to war. Paul says better than the regular Trump voice. There's people watching this that absolutely hate me doing that voice, but I find it humorous. Thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate the support, my man. God bless. Okay, so back to the stream here. We covered Saint Olga's life. We covered Sviatoslav's destruction of the Khazars. We covered the 4 stages of her revenge. And in fact, if you guys want, we could read the 4 stages of her revenge right here. As I told you, we'll do this and then we'll wrap up. So if you have any questions or comments or you'd like to support the stream, please do so. You can use YouTube. We need 10 more super chats to reach our goal. I don't think we're going to reach the goal here. Oh, we've already passed. Oh yeah, we're out of time. Okay, never mind. We're actually at 14. Okay, so we just need 6 more to reach the goal. The time limit didn't run out. 6 more to reach the goal. But, or if you prefer Dono Chat or Streamlabs. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read the actual text from the Russian Primary Chronicle. Now, this is not the entire Russian Primary Chronicle. It's much longer than this. I was searching specifically for the sections about Olga. So that's why the founding of Kiev and this right here. Olga's Revenge. Olga's Revenge. Check this out. Olga's Revenge, 945 AD. And this year, Igor's retinue said to him, "The servants of Sevenold are adorned with weapons and fine raiment, but we are naked. Go forth with us, O prince, after tribute, that both of you may profit thereby." Actually, this is kind of boring. This is actually boring. I'm not going to read this. You guys can read it yourself, damn it. Here, I'll share the link to you guys. It's going to be kind of old-timey. And honestly, I spent like multiple hours putting together, and this helps me. So my study guides aren't even for you. They're for me. They're for me. But here's the study guide I put together. Here's her icon. So not all the icons have St. Olga with the church, but often you'll see the church. So you get her with her royal headwear for the Rurikids and the Kievan Rus. You have her white veil symbolizing purity. You have the Orthodox cross in her right hand, symbolizing her new devotion, her new loyalty, her new baptism. And like Mary, you see she has blue with red over. She has humanity. So in icons, I don't know if you guys know, maybe you've heard this because now Jim Bobs are, official Orthodox online iconographer here. But red symbolizes divinity in icons. So, and it's not a hard rule. It depends on what tradition you're looking at. But for example, dang. How did that get muted? So here's an icon of the Theotokos. You see, just like St. Olga, she's wearing blue underneath. Blue represents humanity, right? We just finished celebrating the Dormition. If you went to liturgy, like you should, you saw that your priest was wearing blue vestments. Why was he wearing blue vestments? Because blue symbolizes Mary, the Theotokos. Blue symbolizes humanity, sometimes green as well. But green is also the color of the Holy Spirit. So like when we celebrate Pentecost, you'll see green vestments. So the blue represents her humanity. The red represents her divinity. She's putting on divinity through theosis. She is, again, the process of divinization. Well, you can see that motif playing out here with St. Olga as well. And she is a type of, she is an archetype of Mary. And in many ways, the Christians saw her that way because she was giving birth to a Christian nation. So this study guide, I'll be putting this up on Substack, but they're always available inside my Logos Academy. If anybody's interested in actual formation, actually getting your life in order, actually being held accountable with resources and other men, do join the Logos Academy. Here's the little timeline that I was talking to you guys about earlier. And historical setting, I already talked to you guys about the Kievan Rus. Here's the problem with the sources. So sources and problem of historical memory. The primary chronicle is where we get most of this stuff from. That's what this thing is, the primary chronicle. The tale of bygone years, as sometimes it's translated. So it contains Igor's death, Olga's revenge, administrative reforms, conversion narrative, relationship with Sviatoslav, theological interpretation of her life, all that stuff. Then we have Constantine VII, the emperor who in the primary chronicle claims to have baptized her. He has the De Ceremonis, And in here, it's a near contemporary Byzantine source describing Olga's reception at Constantinople. It is especially important because it does not explicitly describe her baptism. This is why people like Ostrogorsky believes that she was probably already Christian before she came. But the church typically refers back to, so like the ortho articles and stuff that I was reading from earlier, they typically are pulling from the primary chronicle. But you also have these other historical sources that are mostly Byzantine. So you have Leo the Deacon, Byzantine, John Skylitzes, Byzantine. Then you have some Latin sources connected with Otto I, confirming Olga's request for Christian clergy, which then got slaughtered by the Slavs and they ran home to their mommies. Then you have Arabic and Persian writers, important for Rus, Khazaria, and Eastern campaigns of Sviatoslav, because a lot of the Arab sources, because they didn't like the Khazars either, joined the club, I guess. And they documented the Rus undermining and essentially setting the stage for the total destruction of Khazaria. Igor's death, we talked about that. The various revenge sections of St. Olga, we talked about that. Olga's an administrative and state builder. This is the part that often gets overlooked. So I want to make an emphasis on this for Heidi. Again, shout out to Heidi for sponsoring today's stream. Olga wasn't just vengeful. Like, she actually turned the Kievan Rus into a real state. So Olga's administrative reforms were probably more important historically than the revenge stories. She fixed the tribute obligations, basically created a real tax system, which was more fair for all the different tribes. She created administrative centers. She created princely domains, so it would be easier. Instead of Igor, who had his soldiers and he would roam around the entire Kievan Rus controlling it, she created an administrative hierarchy where she had soldiers in all parts stationed there. And then the Pagosti, centers associated with tribute administration, essentially kind of administrative buildings, tax buildings. And so it represents an important shift from personal tribute collection to a more organized territorial government, and really setting the stage for Vladimir the Great to turn it into a essentially an empire. Olga's conversion to Christianity, we talked about that. She adopted the name Helena because of Constantine. So the primary chronicle describes Olga traveling to Constantinople, as I said. Ostrogorsky argued that Olga was probably already Christian before 957. Another scholar that I found, Dmitry Oblinsky, also considered the silence of De Ceremonis important, but proposed a different possibility that Olga may have been baptized after the Constantinopolitan visit. Maybe. Then we have Pritsak and Featherstone, who both defended versions of the 1957 baptism of Constantinople. So there are academic scholars who defend the primary chronicle, and that is essentially what the church uses regarding Olga. So then we get into the marriage stuff. We saw that. And then a little bit of Adalbert of Magdeburg made it out with his life. There's Sviatoslav, talks a little bit about that, the Khazar Khaganate, later his campaigns into Byzantium or with the Bulgars, his fight with the Byzantines, death. Then we get to Vladimir the Great. So 988, you get Vladimir the Great, and that is the true Christianization of the Slav. The tradition date, 988, Vladimir baptizes a large scale of the Christian Rus. He baptizes them in the river. That's where they get baptized. And it was all his boys, all his important men got baptized first, and then everyone did it later. So you can see this generation here, that it's Olga beginning to Christianize the Slavs. Sviatoslav goes the other direction, but kind of opens up a stage of opportunity by undermining the Khazars. And then it's Vladimir, her grandson, who comes in and actually institutionalizes Christianity for the Slavic people. So why is she called equal to the apostles? Well, she's equal to the apostles because of the fact that she was essential in the Christianization of the Slavs, which was completed by her grandson. So anyways, guys, that is going to do it for me. Again, the study guide that is going to be available over at Substack. If you guys follow me on Substack, follow me on the new X account if you're on X. And tomorrow morning, so I got a bunch of things coming on this week. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m., and I'm going to try to get the stream posted tonight, I'll be on with Anthony Westgate. We'll be talking about dead internet theory. That's going to be tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Wednesday, and we don't have a time yet, I'm going to be joined by Jim Bob. You guys may have heard of him. I don't know. His name's Made by Jim Bob. He's a kind of a cartoonist, debater, satirist. So anyways, this guy, Jim Bob, no, I'm kidding. Jim Bob, I'm going to join Jim Bob. I think he's coming over here on Wednesday. We're going to discuss astrotheology. I'm going to find a bunch of clips of like Michael Tsarian and Jordan Maxwell and all these astrotheologians. We're going to watch videos, critique it, stuff like that. And then Jose will be on Thursday. So we got stream tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I got some stuff cooking up that I got to prep for on Marty Leeds. God dang. Marty Leeds. Sad story. Anyways, yeah, so I'll be live all week, and then I'm going to try to put some stuff together on Friday, and I'm thinking about finishing my intro to religion. So I started an intro religions stream where I would do part 1 publicly and then part 2 privately. And I did theories of religion, native traditions, Hinduism, and Buddhism. I need to do Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and new religious movements. So I may do one of those this Friday. And I may stream again Saturday and talk to you guys about how to find a wife. There's a lot of guys out there trying to find a wife. So I may do a stream on that topic as well. So anyways, I have tons of content to get out this week. And a major thank you again goes to our sister Heidi for sponsoring a stream on such an incredible saint. Oh yeah, Logos News. Well, when something major happens, I need to do another. You're right, Theodosian Walls. Well, maybe Friday I'll do a Logos News and I'll do the other one Saturday. I don't know. I got so much content I need to create. So anyways, I'll get a Logos News stream in there somewhere, I promise. But thank you, Theodos. Oh, and Total Gravity throws in 10. Thank you so much, Total Gravity. God bless you, bro. Thank you very much for that, man. I appreciate it. Really do. Thank you. So, I think that is going to do it for me. My wife asked earlier, what should we women learn from Olga? What should women learn from Olga? I would say, one, the love that she had for Igor. She was a widowed woman at 25 who never married again. Ladies, pay attention. Also, she was incredibly smart, right? So I think for women, she could be an inspiration for a woman who is intelligent, cunning, quick-witted, brave, also like hardcore. I mean, that vengeance she had against the Drevlians, that was no joke. So also she was incredibly beautiful from what we understand historically. So I would say the major takeaway of Olga is not her pagan days, right? That's pre-Christian. I would say it's the post-Christian, is that she was beloved by people who really were not very conducive to Christianity. And she was seen as a mother figure. She was incredibly nurturing. She protected the community. She built churches. She took care of the poor, right? So she took the Christian message when she went back to Kiev, for the Kievan Rus and some of the pagans, like she took care of them. She as we read in one of the Orthodox sources talked about how she was beloved by pagans, even though she was Christian, and that she cared for them. And that's one of the reasons why they never once rebelled against her. They didn't really rebel against Olga as leader. They trusted in her wisdom. They trusted in her guidance. They trusted in her discernment. So, I don't know. She's not exactly, I mean, can you say she's a great mother? I don't know. I mean, Sviatoslav was a great warrior. He didn't convert to Christianity. She was a devout wife. You could say that. You could say, and we know that she was incredibly pious and prayed fervently for the rest of her life. So I'd say those are a few takeaways that you could take from Olga for sure. Yeah, you don't have to kill an entire city. No, Jenny. So we need to take over the world, or what do you mean by hard? No, you don't need to be hardcore. You don't have to take over the world. But could she cook? I don't know. Do princesses cook? I don't know if she even did cook. Maybe they cooked for her. I don't know. I don't know if princesses cooked. So, yeah, it's funny, Gregory. Yeah, kings and generals. She used the church. She converted for political reasons. The church. Oh no, she built churches. She saved people. She cared for her subjects. She was a devout Christian her whole life. It's like, if she took advantage of the church, I don't think the church would probably promote her like they do. So, yeah, great point. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for me. I will be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. with Anthony Westgate talking about dead internet theory. So I will see you guys then. Thank you very much for everyone who supported the stream tonight. God bless you guys. Genuinely appreciative. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning. As always, until then, God bless.